You do everything right. Good grades, activities, no major mistakes, and you still can't seem to afford college. Not because you didn't try, but because you're not poor enough or exceptional enough. You know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and honestly, it's starting to feel a little ridiculous. I'm going to the University of Oregon. I mean, that's the plan, that's the goal I've been working towards. And the cost of attendance is looking like over $70,000. $70,000 for 1 year. I mean, every time I say it out loud, it doesn't even sound real. It sounds like a number you'd hear for, like, I don't know, buying a car, not going to school. And the part that really gets me is that I'm getting little to no financial aid. Not because I don't need it, but because on paper, my parents make just enough. Now that sounds like, okay, so what's the issue? The issue is that I'm paying for it myself. That's the part FAFSA doesn't seem to understand. FAFSA looks at your parents' income and decides what you should be able to afford. Not what you actually can, not what you're really receiving, just what the numbers say. It doesn't ask, oh, I don't know, are your parents helping you? Are they contributing at all? Is that money even available to you? It just assumes. And that assumption right there changes everything. Because when the number is wrong and that assumption doesn't match the reality, you're stuck with dealing with the consequences. So now I'm here, sitting looking at a $70,000 price tag, trying to figure out how I'm supposed to make this work, all by myself. And the worst part is that this isn't some rare situation. This is actually really common. When people talk about college being expensive, it's usually in a general way, like, yeah, tuition's high or student loans are a problem. But I don't think people really talk enough about who's being affected the most, because that's a group of students that often get overlooked. If your family makes low income, there's programs, grants, and aids that can cover a significant portion of your costs. And if your family is wealthy, then paying for college, while it's still expensive, is at least possible. But if you're in the middle, you're expected to just figure it out. You don't qualify for enough aid to make a real difference, but you also don't just have the money to pay for it. You're in this weird space where everything is technically within reach, but not really. People will say, well, just apply for scholarships. I hear that all the time. Teachers say it, counselors say it, adults say it, like it's an obvious solution. But scholarships aren't some unlimited pool of free money just sitting there waiting for anyone who asks. They're competitive. A lot of them go to students with perfect GPAs, insane extracurriculars, leadership positions, and very specific life circumstances. And even if you do get the scholarship, most of them are small, a few $100s here, maybe $1,000 there, which helps, but that doesn't even come close to touching something like $70,000 a year. So you can do everything right, you know, be a good student, stay involved, work hard, and still end up in a position where college feels financially impossible. And it's not even just me. I mean, I've seen so many students talking about this online. People saying their FAFSA expected their families to contribute tens of thousands of dollars, when in reality, they weren't getting any help at all. You know, students choosing schools that they don't even want to go to just because they're cheaper. Students going to community college, not because it was their first choice, but because it's the only option that makes sense financially. Or students taking on huge amounts of debt before they even started their career. And it just makes me wonder, I mean, how did this all become normal? I mean, because when you actually look at the numbers, it gets even worse. College tuition in the United States has increased massively over the past few decades, far faster than wages have. The average student now graduates with about $30,000 in debt. And that's just an average. For a lot of people, it's much higher. So now we've created a system where it's normal to either get enough aid, or you can't afford it, or you go into debt. Those are the options. And I think what frustrates me the most is that this idea of college has been pushed for our entire lives. It's always been presented as the next step. You know, you do well in school, then get into a good college, build your future. No one really talks about what happens when you actually get there and realize you can't afford it. Or that affording it means pushing yourself into a situation that could follow you for years. And I just keep thinking back to this one thing. You know, FAFSA assumes support that isn't always there. It assumes that because your parents make a certain amount of money, that money is automatically available to you. But that's not how real life works, is it? I mean, every situation is different. Some parents can't contribute, some won't. Some have other financial responsibilities that aren't really considered. And none of that is fully reflected in the number that FAFSA gives you. But that number is what determines your aid. I mean, that means that it determines your options, which means that it can completely shape your future. And I don't think that's talked about enough, because coming from the outside, it looks like everything's based on fairness and need. But when you're actually going through it, it doesn't really feel that way. It feels like you're being told you should be able to afford this, even when you know that you can't. And I'm not saying I have the perfect solution. I'm not saying that college should automatically be free for everyone. But what I'm saying is that something about this system isn't working because there are way too many students stuck in this exact position, doing what they're supposed to do, trying to plan their future, and running into a financial wall that doesn't even make sense. So what are the options? Take out a loan and deal with consequences later? Choose a cheaper school to give up the opportunities you work for? Delay college entirely? I mean, none of those feel like good options. They just feel like different versions of settling. And maybe that's the part that doesn't surprise me. It's not just about money. It's about the fact that your opportunities can end up being determined by a system that doesn't even fully understand your situation. Right now, it feels like there's an entire group of students being overlooked. Not poor enough to get real help, not rich enough to afford it, still expected to figure out it on their own. And if college is supposed to be about opportunity, then the question really here is who actually gets that opportunity and who gets left trying to make something impossible work.